Good morning. This is Erin with the Department of Medicaid. It's not quite 9 o'clock and we're still clearing out the waiting room, so we'll give it just a few minutes before we get started. It is 9 o'clock and the waiting room is clear. I only currently have Steve, Kristen, and Van on. Did I miss any TAC members logging in?
I don't think so. That's what I had.
If you like, we could give it a moment longer to see if we get a few more.
Uh, yeah, we need a lot more, right?
Yes.
We can do that. I mean,
We can give it a minute longer, and then if we don't have others join, we can go ahead and start. And
right.
Kelly and I can keep an eye out for anybody who joins to get a quorum.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here. Angela Darcy.
Oh,
Hey, Angel.
thank
Hey.
you. Thank you, Angela. You should show up as iPhone.
Got it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Dr. Schuster always sneaks in under a incognito name, and I can never catch her
Yes.
coming in. So no worries. Our new member is logging in, Steve.
Oh, good. I just sent him a text.
And here comes Brandon and Kevin. Okay, it looks like everybody's starting to filter in.
Okay.
Give them just a second to get connected.
How's that door for now, please?
Okay, Steve, the waiting room is
All right.
clear,
Let's go ahead
and
and
I
get started. Yeah.
I counted 7, so you should be good.
Yep. Me too. That's what I had. And if you're on the TAC, your camera needs to be on, right, Aaron?
Yes, while we vote. Yes,
There
please.
we go. Okay. So, one, I'd like to welcome Nathan Thomas. He is the filling the spot of a formerly incarcerated individual who is a current or former Medicaid recipient appointed by the Mental Health America of Kentucky. So, see his name. He'll get his camera turned on briefly, right, Nathan?
Sorry, Steve. I was dealing with something. I apologize.
No
Um,
problem.
apologize about that. Re-asked the question. I apologize.
Okay. No, I just heard your camera on. You're solid.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You want to briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Nathan Thomas. I am a outreach coordinator. Um, I'm 40 years old. I don't really know how it all to say, but yeah, I've been incarcerated on a few occasions, and I have a lot of lived experience with many things. I believe that we'll be discussing. So I'm super grateful to be here and to be a part of this. So
All right. Glad you're here. All right. I appreciate that. And we have a quorum. So let's go ahead and take action on our minutes from September 12th meeting. Those were sent out. Can I have a motion on the minutes?
I'll motion. Angela Darcy.
Andrew Darsley, and a second.
I'll second Van Ingram.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. All right. That's first bit of real business we have. The next we have Kristen Porter is going to do a presentation on DOC. We've had a lot of conversations and she offered to kind of get us all up to speed on those things that DOC is doing that relates to the reentry. And I think we've touched upon them at different times, so this will be an opportunity. There's a PowerPoint, and of course, I sent it out, and then all good. And so you have a copy of that. And as everyone does with anything they do, document, PowerPoint, there's tweaks and tweaks and tweaks. So there's a version 2.0 that will be sent out as well. But I suspect what you have is going to be more than enough information to move forward. So
Absolutely.
go ahead, Kristen. You
I'm
should
gonna
share your screen.
That's what I was gonna say. If someone can tell me once I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me get this going. You can let me know if I'm good.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm excited to really talk this morning from the Kentucky Department of Corrections perspective. If I have not met you, I am Kristen Porter, the Director of the Division of Reentry Services. So it's very nice to be here this morning, very nice to be here with everyone and really be able to inform you just at a higher level, some of the things that we do to prepare people for release from incarceration, but really not just that. I'm going to give you just some statistics, some numbers. That way this group can kind of think big picture and really see the system the Department of Corrections really has that we deal with every day. So let's go through. At the Department of Corrections, we really have to do two different things. So we've got our mission statement. I'm not going to read it to you. We're all educated here, but it's twofold. We have to protect the Commonwealth. Obviously, we are in the business of housing people that in some instances have done wrong in society. But the second thing is we are not in the business to. Is my screen still sharing? My computer
Yes.
just did something weird. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We aren't in the business at that point. Everyone has already been sentenced by the time they get to us. So at that point, the second job is also providing opportunities to all of the people that are under our charge, whether they're incarcerated, whether they're out in the community, to make sure that they are going to be successful when they're done with the Department of Corrections and whatever done looks like with us. So just to kind of start off and give you some statistics to let you know what we look like. In Kentucky, we're a little unique. If you don't know that, we are only one of a couple of states in the United States that houses half of our state inmate population in our county jails. So we have 14 state prisons. There are 77 county jails throughout the state, but we house inmates at 74 of them. So we have inmates housed at almost 90 different locations in the state of Kentucky. And if you can just imagine that all in and of itself, without getting into any other issues, that can cause a lot of issues there. Just trying to provide consistent services in the Department of Corrections. So state population wise, when you look at state inmates, when you think of county jails, you also do have to think there are other inmates in the county jails too. There are county inmates as well. So we're only talking about state population here. But overall, as of these numbers were as of October 21st, just for the record, but we had 19,141 state inmates in the state of Kentucky. The way our population looks, if you break it down, 67% of those were housed in our state prisons. So across the 14 locations throughout the state. 33% of those were in our jails. So a smaller population in our jails versus our prisons. But in a minute, we'll kind of talk about what releases look like, and you'll see that turn flip when we talk about jails versus prisons as well. When we talk the Department of Corrections in the state of Kentucky, we have our incarcerated population, but also our community population under probation or parole that is supervised also in the Department of Corrections. Sometimes in other states that is different, but in Kentucky, it is also in the Department of Corrections. So there are 62,871 people that are under the supervision, under some sort of level of supervision with the Division of Probation and Parole. So that means the Division of Probation and Parole has an obligation to ensure that those individuals are meeting the regulations that the judge has ordered them to do or the parole board has ordered them to do while they're on supervision in the community. 48,840 of them are active. And what the difference between those two numbers mean for this group, just to understand, is there is a point in someone's supervision out in the community to where you can do good and you can work your way down off of supervision to be on inactive supervision, to where you're still under supervision, just inactive supervision, to where the PNP officers aren't actively coming to your home. You're not having to report into the office all of the time. But you still are under the authority of probation and parole, but they're not actively seeing you all of the time, once a month or once every 3 months, anything like that. So, but
And what's the difference between probation and parole?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Steve. So if you are on parole, the easiest way to think about it is if you're on parole, you've really stepped foot in an incarcerated setting. That's the most basic way to think about it. In probation, the majority of the time, I can't say all the time because there are shock probation instances, but shock probation, most of the time, you may have served a small jail sentence while your case has been pending, but you didn't go and serve any length of time in a state prison. So for parole, the parole board has the sentencing authority over the cases. So they determine what your regulations, what your conditions are that you have to follow while you're under supervision with the Department of Corrections. For probation, a judge, one of the circuit court or district court judges determines that.
Okay.
So there are a lot of individuals, between 19,000 that are in custody and almost 49,000 that are out in the community. It's a big charge the Department of Corrections has in the state. Unfortunately, out of the 50 states, Kentucky is high in comparison just for overall incarceration. If you compare us to other states, we are high in comparison to female specific incarceration, which is a little unique in comparison to states, and then also high in current or previous incarcerated parents. So those are some facts that are good for this group to know because that shows some of the needs of our population. If you look back to last year,
No, he's not on there.
Oh, sorry, I thought somebody had a question. If you look back to last year, when you look at the releases, we released 14,730 individuals from custody. So a lot of individuals were released from custody. Most of those, when I said earlier, you will see the numbers reverse. The jail did the majority of the releases. So the majority of the people that are being released every year are coming out of the jails. That doesn't mean the prisons don't release any, but of the 14,730 releases in 2023, 11,588 of them came from a jail. 3,142 of them came from a prison. And so that in and of itself shows you that the cyclical population in the state of Kentucky is your jail population. They are the people that are coming in to the system and going out of the system at a rapid pace. And so those are the people that really need a lot of attention. And you'll see, if you know anything about me, for those of you who have met me, you know I'm going to talk about the great things that we do and the gaps that we have too. So you'll see some gaps that we have with these numbers. So keep that in mind throughout this. For our state prisons, Roeder Correctional Complex, Eastern Kentucky Correctional Complex, Northport Training Center did our highest release numbers in 2023. But of our facilities, Kentucky State Reformatory and Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women did our most challenging releases. And what I mean by that is we have people with high medical needs, high mental health needs, high substance use needs, that are hard to place. We can't find a place to really even just have them lay their head. If you're on this call, a lot of times you'll get an email from me saying, DOC needs help with the placement. Please help, please help. 9 times out of 10, these individuals are coming from those 2 facilities. So in the Department of Corrections, just to kind of walk you through the process of what it looks like, reentry is beginning at day 1. When someone is entering into the correctional system, everybody gets a pre-sentence investigation report that shows people and all of the caseworkers throughout someone's time while they're in working through the Department of Corrections. Excuse me, the probation and parole officers, the reentry coordinators, everyone that works, that shows everyone basically a brief snapshot of the history of that individual at the time of sentencing. The biggest person it shows is obviously the judge as well. So that is an informative document that the judge sees to consider at the time of sentencing. And it's a snapshot of who that individual is at that time. I mean, it's basic identity information, but it's also education level, it's family, it's prior criminal history. It goes through all kinds of aspects of them. We go at when someone, after they have that, they get sentenced, they come into the correctional system, there is an orientation, they get classified. The classification includes getting them into a proper housing unit. They get work and program assignments, and then they get an assigned custody level. There is an assessment system that, based off of different factors, they get assigned a different custody level. So some people can be minimum custody, medium custody, maximum custody. Our prisons throughout the state are different custody levels. So sometimes that determines which prison they get housed at. Some people a lot of times will ask, well, gosh, they were from this area. Why did you move them all the way across the state? Sometimes the answer is, unfortunately, as basic as their custody level determine that. And so sometimes that's what you have to do when you factor all of those things in. There's a medical, dental, and mental health screening that is done to see what needs are occurring while someone is incarcerated. There is a permanent housing assignment that happens, because what will end up happening is we will try to have someone permanently assigned in a state prison. Every prison does have different unique programs and job opportunities, though. So our population does have the opportunity to apply for a different program if they need it or want it, and request a transfer to a different location. So that is an option too. They get a risk and needs assessment to determine their risk to reoffend and what needs they have while incarcerated. And when you think needs, we're thinking like criminal thinking needs, what programs we could do, what activities we could help them participate in while they're incarcerated to really change that criminal behavior and mindset. Maybe it's anger management, maybe it's parenting classes, something along those lines to really help. Maybe it's substance use treatment, sex offender treatment programs, things like that. They have a reentry case plan that dictates and really kind of goes through and lists what the program requirements would be, what activity assignments, what work assignments would be. And then throughout all of that, we're leading up to release preparation and then ultimately out on community supervision if they continue with the Department of Corrections. Some people serve their time out when they leave us, and they do not continue with supervision when they leave the Department of Corrections. So what we found several years ago is about 2015, 2016, Kentucky was at an all-time high for recidivism. We were at about 45, 47, something like that %. And that was the highest we'd ever been. So we had started with House Bill 463, if you'd been around for a while, with some efforts trying to change some things, but it wasn't happening fast enough, frankly. And so we needed to make a lot more changes. So in February 1st, 2018, the Division of Reentry was established. At that point, what we needed in the Department of Corrections was dedicated staff who it wasn't someone's side job. I've worked in the Department of Corrections for almost 19 years now. My very first job was a correctional officer at Luther Luckett Correctional Complex. I was a probation and parole officer out in the community, was a supervisor with probation and parole in the community, came into central office later. In my positions that I carried throughout the state leading up to before 2018, if in all of those positions you wanted to do reentry efforts as working in the Department of Corrections, it was because you wanted to. And it was because it was if you have time, you can teach this portal class to try to help people, or if you have the heart for it, or if you have the passion for it. So some of us did. I went into Rotor Correctional Complex as a probation and parole officer and taught pre-release classes. I facilitated extra classes, but those were in addition to my job duties that I got evaluated on to make sure I did those. So we didn't, before February 1st of 2018, have dedicated staff whose job was reentry efforts. So February 1st came along, we established a specific division in 2018 to solely focus on reentry efforts, to really try to change and make a difference of it's not a sad job. Someone has to start focusing on teaching classes, expanding program opportunities, focusing on release efforts. So as of today, we have 85 staff reporting to the same division. Now I will go back really quick. Those numbers that we talked about here, 19,000 inmates, 50,000 almost in the community, 85 staff. There's a struggle there, but so there's still a struggle there. We're going to talk about lots of the struggles that we have today. Everything we're doing isn't perfect. It's not at all, but we've come a long way, and there's still a long way to go. For sure, 100%. So right now we have 85 staff reporting to the same division. We have worked to try to standardize release processes. If you were being released from one prison on one side of the state of Kentucky to the other side of the state of Kentucky, it will look the same versus how it did several years ago. You used to maybe have a warden that was more reentry minded and would maybe give someone sweats to walk out with instead of having to walk out with khakis. And then everyone in the community knew exactly where you just got released from. Something as small as that, to where immediately when you walk out of prison, you still have a label on your face. So now trying to make sure that release processes are standardized, We've put reentry training into every basic academy to where every probation and parole officer is now trained through a lot of reentry efforts by our own division as well, and every correctional officer. We created events to start happening, lots and lots of different collaborations over the years. We've expanded programs we'll talk about, expanded resources, and we really started working with a lot of community partners. This is what we look like in a nutshell. I know you all will get this PowerPoint, so I'm not going to dive too far into this, but we are broken down to where those 85 staff oversee every staff. We have staff in every state prison, every community probation and parole office. I only have 7 staff that cover 19 jails. Those jails have a substance use program that is DOC contracted, and those positions are core funded. So we're so gracious to be able to have, so thankful to have those positions. But there are 74 jails that people get released from. So DOC does not have staffing to help with some of those jails to do those releases. So that is a huge barrier that we currently face right now. So what do we do just specifically in the Division of Reentry? In a nutshell, we attend community resource meetings, trying to gather resources to bring back to the population. We do employment assessments to connect to employment. We educate employers on the benefits of being a second chance employer. We do referrals to adult education to do continuing education services in the community post-release. We maintain clothing closets and food pantries because sometimes the basic needs that people always think, oh my gosh, everybody needs an ID. And yes, they do. Sometimes people need to eat to live. And sometimes it's the basic needs too that people need. So we're maintaining clothing closets and food pantries. We're facilitating reentry programming. Those are life skills classes, cognitive behavioral therapy classes, really focusing on criminal thinking. Those are in-person and virtual options. We monitor certificate of employabilities to ensure that employers know, if we, the Department of Corrections, will give a certificate signing our name behind this person saying they were good while they were with us, will you please hire them? That's what a certificate of employability is. So we're doing that as well. We coordinate CURIS trainings. CURIS is our risk and needs assessment that we use in the Kentucky Department of Corrections to determine someone's risk level and what needs they have. We maintain course catalogs. We screen new programs. There's always a newer, better, most recent version of the newest reentry program out there that someone wants the Department of Corrections to review, and they are amazing 9 times out of 10, and our division is the ones that do that. We review all of the new programs. We represent at all of the reentry councils when we can. We have, of course, 55 probation and parole offices in the state. So I do have staff that work in the offices. There are 20 reentry coordinators in the offices. So there's 20 probation and parole districts, and I have 1 in every office. So they monitor all 55 offices. We do the reentry programming. We do release planning for the 14 prisons and 19 jails. We monitor parole board hearings. So the parole board conducts the hearings, but someone has to sit in the hearings while they're happening to know what's going on with them, and our staff are doing that. We host and or co-host events with community partners, and then we do lots of initiatives that we'll talk about too. So different types of programs that we facilitate. We do evidence-based programs. These are programs that there is evidence behind them to show they are effective in changing behavior and reducing recidivism. We have promising practices programs that it makes sense. In theory, it's going to change behavior, but there's not a full amount of evidence there. There's life skills programs in the Department of Corrections that shows that there are barriers and that need to be removed. And it's basically your daily needs. Being able to teach people about time management and money and technology, communication, all of those things. And then there's religious programs as well. So those are the 4 different types of programs that we have in the Department of Corrections that we facilitate and monitor. Just to give you a brief snapshot of of a lot of programs. We have an entire Department of Corrections course catalog. Someone will say, what kind of programs do you offer? Oh my goodness, there's a ton. There are so many different types of programs that we offer. And it's all kinds. I mean, there are vocational programs. You can see auto tech is on there. There's masonry, there's different types of things that people can learn skills to be able to have once they're released. There's substance use programs, there's sex offender programs, there's educational programs. So there are a variety of programs. There are challenges with our programs. There is a program called Challenges, but there are challenges with our programs too, because we do struggle in hiring qualified facilitators and teachers for a lot of our programs as well. So sometimes you'll see that we could have a program being offered in the Department of Corrections, but the teacher will sit vacant for some time because of the wage that we're able to pay. So that's a challenge that we have in the Department of Corrections, is sometimes being able to fulfill those positions to keep the programs going for the population. We were super excited about House Bill 284 because that gave us the opportunity to expand programming to our community population. So before House Bill 284, if you don't really know a lot about our programs are amazing because our population gets a lot from our programs, and it also helps them change their mindset, their thinking, change really their life. However, sometimes people only want to take a program because also a lot of times people get good time credit for completing our programs. I don't care why someone completes a program, because if you're going to sit in a program only because you want the time off of your sentence, that's fine. You're still going to pick up something from that. You can't tell me you're not going to sit in a 6-month class and not hear something that's going to stay in your head. So we do usually award 30, 60, or 90 days of good time credit for completing a program. And so House Bill 284 in 2020 expanded that process to allow judges in the community to also award good time off of probationers' sentences as well. Before that, it was all our parolees. So that allowed people who are in the community to really start being able to reduce their sentence and get equal opportunity with that. But it also allowed us in the Department of Corrections to leverage that and be able to do community MOUs to have different entities come in, be trained under the Department of Corrections in our programs to facilitate in the way that we facilitate programs for a consistent delivery of services, make sure that the staff are eligible, have their certificates to facilitate. The community partners enter in a non-financial MOU with the Department of Corrections, and they will also facilitate our programs for us for the population. So being able to do this and the expansion of our division, if you look down at the bottom right hand of the screen and look at the number of program completions from 2017 to 2023 and look at that difference, just under 7,000 to almost under 35,000 there. That is huge. And if you don't believe in reentry, if you're like, people did wrong and they need to serve their time, but you're a money person, if that's what what drives you, then this is your slide to focus on. Because if someone gets 90 days off their sentence, and it costs $1.23 to incarcerate someone, let's not quote me on that because I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's a little bit over $1, something like that, depending on what location you're at. So, but you do the math on your own, because I did not come here as a math wizard this morning. But look at how much money we are saving the state just by the program expansion. So if that's what drives you is money, then this is your slide you want to focus on. So where do releases come from in the Department of Corrections? 14 state prisons, 74 county jails. We do also have people that leave incarceration from our prisons and our jails sometimes and go to Recovery Kentucky centers for inpatient substance use treatment, but also reentry service centers, which is really what we call halfway houses, formerly known as halfway houses. There are 13 Recovery Kentucky centers and 20 reentry service centers in the state. The difference between the two, Recovery Kentucky centers has treatment, reentry service centers, they are going there for a stay because they need another place to stay eventually. So it's basically a temporary housing. We continue to, when we're trying to prepare someone for release, we are focused on all of these things. Home placement is a given. Someone has to have a place to live, but we're trying to make sure that people are being released with 30 days of medication, mental health and medical appointments, coordinating insurance, which I know, obviously we work with all of the MCOs that are on here, ID, identification documentation, the ID, birth certificate, social security card, resource connectivity. We release people with what we call a district snapshot or a community resource manual. And that's a resource packet for whatever area they're going into the state that lists a lot of different resources in the community they're going to. Employment, transportation, we know is a huge barrier, and I'll talk about that in a second. Continuing education, clothing, and programming. In May of this year, we started utilizing this reentry needs checklist for all releases that are leaving a prison. And this was to ensure that people weren't being missed in several different categories. Sometimes we weren't having all of our entities in a prison. When you think of a prison, I try to tell people, think of it like a mini city. You've got your mayor of education, you've got your mayor of substance use, you've got your mayor of reentry. All of these mayors need to talk before the person leaves this city to make sure they are leaving this city to go move to another city, because that's how we have to run our prisons, is like a little city. We have to be able to support everyone in it. So we wanted to make sure to use this checklist to make sure that we weren't missing anything for the releases. So this started in May. Once someone is released, they can be released and be totally done with supervision. So sometimes when they're totally done with supervision, we will connect with different community entities, whether that is our partners at like the Education and Labor Cabinet, with the local career centers, TAC services, with behavioral health, different community reentry networks. We've partnered with Goodwill a lot. We partner with Life Learning Center, different entities like that across the state, to really continue that relationship for someone at the time of release. If someone is continuing on supervision with the Department of Corrections, then these things happen with the Department of Corrections staff. So they continue with a risk and needs assessment. They have a reentry case plan. There's continued programming out in the community that's available to them. There is a client portal application they can utilize on their phone as well to check in with their probation officer for technology and check in on their progress of supervision. We have transportation assistance, which we are so thankful to have, funded by our own Van Ingram here on the call for the Office of Drug Control Policy. Just this year alone, we've done over 17,000 rides. So transportation is one of our biggest barriers for our population. People want to be successful when they leave. They really, really do. They want to go to their treatment. They want to go see their probation officer. They want to go to continuing medical, mental health appointments, education assessments. Sometimes it's something as basic as, I don't have a ride to get there. So being able to have partnerships with the Office of Drug Control Policy in different entities like CORE and in other areas throughout the state as well, to be able to make sure that people can get where they need to go has been huge for our population. So we're so grateful for that. We will connect to the local community mental health centers. We have clothing closets and food pantries in our probation and parole offices. We work with the different, like I was saying, the different reentry organization groups and faith-based groups, the reentry councils, and we do have veterans assistance that works pre and post-release for our veterans that are being released as well. Specific to employment, we have a lot of employment issues because employment is one of the biggest barriers to someone being successful on supervision. So just to talk about a few employment initiatives that we have an opportunity for employers called the PICEP. It's Prison Industries Certification Program. I know we're close to Thanksgiving. When we say pie, I'm thinking pumpkin, but this is different. So it is the PIE program that we call it. It is where we we work with an outside sector, an outside employer to come in. They work in our facilities, have real prevailing wages that they pay our inmates pre-release for the services. Right now we have Restoration Parts Unlimited that is at KCIW. And what they do, we have women at the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women who work sewing different pieces to restore classic cars for their different upholstery. So it's really, really cool if you see it.
Yeah.
But if you know anything about inmate wages, it's pennies. Yeah, I mean, it's pennies. So this is actually gets them prevailing wages. And the way their wages are divided up, it's divided up to where certain amounts of the wages needed to go to different things. Some of it goes to Crown Victims Fund, some of it they save to prepare for release. So it's a really great program. We do hope to have, we've got another one or two industries that are in the pipeline kind of getting ready to start with this that I can't say out loud yet, but we're hoping to see more of this grow in the future because this is an amazing opportunity for our population. We did also work over the past couple of years and receive a grant to work and create a game. I'll age myself for a second, but if anyone played the Sims game ever, where you had the little diamond above your head, it looks like that basically, and it's where you have a simulator to where an individual is going through this game and it is a pre-release preparation to prepare someone for a job interview. So some, even basic things like that, a lot of times when we want to do things like that, you all know it costs money. So we have to seek the funds from somewhere. So we got a grant to be able to fund a project to put that on the tablets for the population to be able to prep for employment pre-release. We have REPAs, which is called our Reentry Employment Program Administrators, that are in the community. They focus solely on getting people jobs. These positions originally were funded through the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort Grant. Several years ago, we started with just a handful of them. They were doing so good, we were given more. And then eventually we moved off of grant funding to where we are fully funded just with state funds. And actually, I can announce today, we are continuing to see success that we're adding 2 more of them. So that position just continues to grow. So pretty soon I will have 13 REPAs throughout the state. Still not enough, but we just keep growing slowly. We, just started with a couple. What they do is they do person-centered assessments, and they really focus 100% on the clients trying to make sure they get a job. Because we know if someone is getting money and getting a paycheck in their pocket, they are more likely to be successful and not continue to commit crimes. The other 20% of their job is to go door to door and focus and speak with employers and explain the benefits of being a second chance employer and really try to drum up more and more employers in the Commonwealth for our population. We have our employment pipeline to where we really start pre-release with trying to have those conversations and make sure that we know, okay, are you going to need a job? Do you have a job lined up? This all started about the same time as our reentry needs checklist. And then within the past few months, we have our Second Chance State Government Employment Initiative. So Governor Beshear announced that all state government cabinets will be second chance state employers. And this is one of the things that I should have updated on here and I didn't, but this has now expanded to all state cabinets. So every state government cabinet is now a second chance state employer. So every cabinet in the state of Kentucky has picked positions. Some of them have just said any position, but really gone through and said, you know what, we challenge employers. The governor said, we challenge employers in the state to be a second chance employer. Why aren't we doing it? So we are, and that's exactly what we're doing now. So it's been wonderful. We host expungement sessions, we host reentry simulations, we do job and resource fairs, and these are all jointly hosted with different entities. I know a lot of people on this call have participated and seen a lot of these events, so I'm not going to dive into details on any of them. But we do a lot of informational events and sessions for our population, but also for community members as well to educate. Different collaborations that we have. We work to ensure with the Department of Transportation, funded by CORE and the Kentucky Chamber Foundation, to ensure that everyone from the state prisons and our jails where we have staff are being released with a state ID. I hit on transportation vouchers. We talked about the technology advancements, trying to make sure we get the games on the tablets, to really work on that as well. To really, a lot of times our people that are in our state prisons have been removed from society for so long. They need help with learning technology in many instances, but also just with preparation for jobs specifically as well. Continuing medical treatment, we have a Hep C and HIV and jails initiative that is going on, employment pipeline that I hit on. The most recent one we're working on is KRS 213.141 will allow birth certificates to be free, which is because there's a fee waiver for homeless clients. And so we've been in talks with them to make sure that a lot of our population is homeless at the time that they are being released. So why is our population having to pay for birth certificates? So we are working on that right now. We work with Goodwill. We've got an Aspire project working with them. We have a couple of exciting union partnerships that are starting in the beginning of the year, to where we have the unions, ironworkers unions, and the painters that will be coming in and actually facilitating their whole pre-apprenticeship at a couple of our prisons to train people in their trade. Again, thanks to Van, we did Narcan distribution in 2023 and 2024. And you can see over 17,000 kits were issued in 2023 and over 6,000 in 2024. I see Angela on here. We are heavy working in partnership on the Medicaid 1115 waiver expansion. So we're working on that, and I should have put CAA on that too, because that's coming up sooner than the Medicaid 1115, really. We have peer recovery coaches with addiction services and Voices of Hope, and then the Second Chance State. So my very last slide, because I've done a whole lot of talking this morning and thrown a whole lot at you, but my very last slide that I've got here is to say this. So you can see, where we were. We were 2015, 2016, 2014. We were high in recidivism. we had to put in a lot of changes and a lot of efforts. Everything I have said today, we know I am talking in perfect world. We all know also that we don't live in perfect world. So there are challenges that the Department of Corrections face. We face a lot of challenges. We face challenges in regards to predicting release dates. There are immediate releases that happen to where we can't prepare sometimes for all of these releases. We didn't get time to do that. We talked about the challenge of we're not providing all of these services to everyone that's coming out of the jails. We do have people that get missed. So I do not want to sit in this group and sit here and try to say we're doing everything amazing in the Department of Corrections, because that's not me. That's not what I do. We aren't. There is a lot of room for improvement. So I'm so thankful for groups like this and all of the entities that are really come together and work to benefit. And I'm super excited for Nathan to start being in this group as well, to hear his perspective, because it doesn't always work. It does not always work. People get missed. People today get missed. Even with all of the efforts we've put into place, people still get missed. We have vacancies. We have positions that can't get filled, and people get missed. So, but with all of the efforts that have been made, you can see the reduction in recidivism. So you can see that we have been heading in the right direction. Everything that we have done has been working. Whether we wanted it to or not, we got a real life experiment with the COVID pandemic, because
Yeah.
we had to shut down a lot of services and pause a lot of services for the protection of our population. So we didn't have a choice. And as a result of that, you immediately saw, if you're not aware of how recidivism works in the state of Kentucky, we measure it on a 2-year interval. So whether we wanted that real life test or not, we had it. You immediately saw when we paused services, recidivism started going back up. So that shows us everything we're doing has been working. And that's all I got.
Wow. I really obviously knew very little about what's available. That is really a robust thing. And really since 2018, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
this has
Oh,
changed the
yeah.
whole focus.
We've been
And
busy, Steve.
yeah. I mean, we're about 3.5, 4 months short of 7 years. And look what you've done in that period of time. And it
Yeah.
really is remarkable.
So much more to do, though.
Yeah, there's always more to do, but it's okay to appreciate what's been done.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, Steve, you look at those numbers, she won't say it, but a lot of this is it contributed to Christian. I meet with her regularly, and the same enthusiasm she has today, she has in every single meeting. And it's always excited and wanting to move Kentucky forward. So, Christian, you've done an amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any questions? A lot of positive comments. It's good to see. Well, congrats to you and your team, and I think it's obviously making a change in people's lives. And it feeds right in. We are only going to go another 9 minutes, truthfully, so we're going to adjust our agenda. Let's hear from Medicaid. Can you do that, Angela? I'll set a stopwatch on you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And so I guess I was going to say, I don't know if anybody's ever had to follow Kristen before, but she's a tough act to follow. So, and we certainly appreciate it. Again, I think we can't all say enough, Kristen, the work that you all are doing. So, it's always great to hear, and then we always learn something new. Hearing from you all as well. So just to provide some updates in the Medicaid space, again, always want to take the opportunity when we have a chance to say from overall Medicaid perspective, again, we are in open enrollment period at this time. And so please, anybody, we always ask and appreciate your support working with us and our members. But we want to help them through that process and make sure, again, that we get that completed. So there certainly will drop in some information in the chat But again, just want to make sure that we have that word out about that. In terms of reentry updates, we did submit, Kentucky did submit our implementation plan that we have spoke to quite a bit to CMS the end of October. So that was a great milestone to meet. But with that being said, we have still quite a bit of work to do over the next couple of quarters in terms of how to operationalize that plan. And so really, again, kind of getting into the nuts and the bolts and the details and in the weeds of some of the things that we've discussed. So that will still be ongoing, meeting with DOC and DJJ on a regular basis. And then again, we'll be pulling in the MCOs to have to be a part of those discussions. And so that work will continue again, I think, into spring. So I should mention in the implementation plan submission, we did request and are looking at an October 1st, 2025 go live date. And so what that means, again, CMS still has to review that plan and approve that plan before we can implement. We've talked about, that time period is still unknown. But again, we'll continue to work through how to operationalize the plan. And then we'll move towards facility readiness. And so again, we could expect to kick that off spring to summer of 2025. And so what that means is we'll be working with each individual facility to ensure, again, that they are ready to go live for 1/1. So that system changes to our eligibility systems, again, with some of the health data exchanges that we've talked about. And again, ensuring that we have all of that work in place for a 1/1 date. Hoping again at that time, our facilities will be providing the pre-release services, able to determine who's eligible, number one, for those pre-release services, providing those pre-release services, and then again being reimbursed for that. So just to give you a little bit of the timeline, but that facility readiness will occur again through 2025. We are working and will submit our monitoring protocol to CMS, anticipating to do that before our Thanksgiving break. Some of the things I think we'll need to work through there, we want to ensure for each of the milestones that we have appropriate measures and metrics in place. Some of the things I think we'll need to work through is how we might collect the data. So there can be some challenges around that. Do want to say we have an upcoming reentry forum, and I'm going to drop the link. So again, it's an opportunity for kind of a more detailed discussion and question and answers. But that's going to be on December 12th. And the information's posted on the website, and we'll go out to each of the TACs. And again, the reentry committees and teams. But we'll get that information posted. So that will be an opportunity again for a little bit more of a in detailed overview of the program and kind of the next steps. We have, again, we are on the process of onboarding our evaluator, which will be Mercer. So again, they will be the independent evaluator. They will be submitting an evaluation plan to CMS by the end of the year. So we will be working to get them onboarded, just to ensure, again, that they have an understanding of Kentucky's goals and implementation projection, and again, be able to complete that evaluation design and submit to CMS. So we'll be working with them over the next 6 or so weeks on that. Want to talk quickly about CAA, the Consolidations Appropriations Act. So again, while it is not directly under the Reentry 1115, it is again going to include the reentry initiatives. So again, the CAA is going to be included in the Medicaid form too. So we'll have an opportunity to go through that a little bit more, but just high level, again, those are new provisions and requirements to state Medicaid agencies to go in effective 1/1/25. It is a subset of services, if you will, a pre-release services required for any eligible juvenile, which is defined as an individual 21 and under, and also our former foster care youth, so up to 26, from 18 to 26. That's going to include screening, diagnostic services, and targeted case management services 30 days pre-release. And then again, targeted case management service 30 days post-release. We have been in communication and conversation with CMS, who is speaking with all states about readiness, and they understand the challenges and constraints of states, again, to be able to implement at a 1/1/25 date. So they are looking at states in terms of fully ready, partially ready, and then just not ready at all. Really think every state is going to fall in that partial ready. Not sure, again, don't think that any state's going to be fully ready. We will submit required SPAL changes, state plan amendment changes. Again, given that CMS has that information available for us by 1/1/25, we will have that in place, and we will have our operational plan in place. Again, it is going to be kind of the 1/1 date. We will be partially ready. There are some facilities we're identifying with DJJ and DOC, potentially again being able to start 1/1/25. But through 2025, we will really then, our plan will be how we will become fully compliant for the CAA provisions. And so again, knowing that no state is going to have all of the eligibility system changes, all of the facilities in their state on board and ready to go 1/1/25. So we are targeting 1/1/25. We will have some facilities again able to meet some of the requirements under CAA provisions, and then we'll work together through 2025 to really kind of build out the plan on how we will onboard the other facilities, and again kind of get to that full compliance. We have started engaging with the jails and having some discussions with them about that. So again, it's going to look very differently, right, for our jails than for our DOC and DJJ partners. And so again, we're gonna, our hope is to kind of survey, what they're currently doing, try to get a better understanding of their landscape, each and individually, so we can really kind of start to build out that roadmap for 2025 and what that's going to look like for Kentucky in terms of the CAA requirements. There is going to be some overlap with the reentry 1115 demonstration. We'll talk a little bit more through that in the reentry forum. We again are also trying to update the website so we can have some information that's more accessible for individuals in our public to view in terms of the reentry projects in Medicaid and going forward. So I know, sorry, ran through a lot there. But and again, hopefully we've got the forum. We were gonna maybe try to use this as an avenue for our forum, but again, we'll have a separate forum next month, and certainly invite you all to participate, and I'll get that information dropped in the chat, and we'll also get it again out through the TAC distribution as well.
Yeah. And the distinction is CAA is youth and jails are included.
Jails are included in that, yes. Yes.
May create an opportunity down the road to add the 1115 to jails.
It is. I think this will be the starting point, right? It's going to be challenging just to get the conversations going, right, with them. And so this is an opportunity that we can start to understand what they're currently doing, what that may look like in the reentry 1115 space, And so absolutely, this will be a great step forward.
All right. Thank you. It's a great report. And I apologize to our MCO friends. We're not going to get to them on the agenda. I know, we normally go for an hour, so I think people have other things planned, and that's okay. We'll get those updates in January. I just can't thank Kristen Porter enough for that information. I just think it's for me one of the best 45 minutes we spent on this TAC. Really understanding what is available, how robust that is, and ultimately how this waiver can interface with the initiatives already going on. So no need to apologize. It was really good information, and and again, I do apologize to other folks. Other members, we're going to skip even the round robin updates to let people get on with their day. But again, thank you. It was a great suggestion that Christian made last meeting to have this discussion. The PowerPoint is available. It was in there somewhere in the chat if you want to take a look at that. There'll be a posted on, I guess, the TAC webpage, maybe. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes.
So the reentry TAC, Personal Return to Society for Incarceration TAC, too long of a name, will be posted there. So you can get that PowerPoint and get that information. Just great job, Christian. Thank you much. You do have a lot of enthusiasm for what we're doing, and we're glad you're there. So y'all take care. And we'll talk in January 25. Oh my gosh. So enjoy your Thanksgiving. Y'all take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Thank you all. Thanks.